Hi everyone, hope you're having a great day. Today I wanted to talk about jaundice. Jaundice is something that is very common in India because of the widespread prevalence and the incidence rates of jaundice, as well as the formations of jaundice in various cases in India, as well as around the world, mainly in the sub-Saharan belt of Africa and those places in Southeast Asia and everything. But jaundice is something that every clinician needs to know about, and as medical students, it's kind of our job to know these things. So before wasting any time, let's just get right into it, okay? I'm just going to pull up the presentation, and here we go. Okay, so again, we're going to start with a few terms. So before knowing about jaundice, you need to know about the concepts of the pigments like bilirubin. Now, bilirubin is a pigment that is formed by the degradation of heme. Uh, if you want, please leave in the comment section whether I should do a video on the cycle of formation of bilirubin, because that's also a very important and kind of necessary answer that you need to be really prepared about. It's a great weapon to have in your arsenal. So bilirubin is basically the pigment that is by the degradation of heme. Now, what is heme? Heme is the product formed when hemoglobin is degraded. So hemoglobin, I think everybody knows and everybody has studied that hemoglobin basically is the pigment that makes the red blood cells well red. So hemoglobin, when it's degraded, is split into two parts, heme and globin. Now globin goes into an amino acid degradation route that we are not going to talk about. We're not really concerned about that, but we will talk about heme. Now heme splits and it goes through a cycle of degradation, which is the heme degradation cycle or the porphyrin degradation cycle, and it's going to form bilirubin as an end product, right? Now urobilinogen. Urobilinogen is a part of the porphyrin cycle, but also urobilinogen can be formed when bilirubin will, what will happen is that the bilirubin will get digested by the bacteria that are present in the intestines, and the the bilirubin will get converted to urobilinogen. Now, the interesting thing about urobilinogen is that urobilinogen can be absorbed by the intestines and then it goes into the kidneys for further excretion, right? So, this is kind of an easy way to understand. Now, Vandenberg reaction. Vandenberg reaction basically is a biochemical test that measures the kind of levels of unconjugated and conjugated bilirubin in a given serum sample. So Vandenberg test, I think a very important MCQ is that it is a biphasic test. Okay. Now this is very important. You need to always remember that the Vandenberg test is biphasic in nature, which basically means that the test will occur in two parts, right? These two parts are basically the first part of the Vandenberg reaction where you will test for unconjugated bilirubin, and then the second part where you will solubilize everything and allow for the formation of conjugated bilirubin, right? It doesn't matter which part you do first, but you should remember that it's a biphasic test. Okay, now jaundice definition. Jaundice definition, you can go for the textbook definition, or the way to understand is yellow tinting of the skin and the external tissue, like the eyes, the sclera, all that. When it gets a yellowish tint, it's jaundice. Now, the usual cause of jaundice is basically the infiltration of bilirubin into the external tissues of the body, right? So, basically, what this means is that there is an external fluid and an internal fluid sectors of the body. Bilirubin will somehow manage to accumulate in the external stores, then it will extravasate into the external tissues. That's how bilirubin will kind of make the skin yellow. Average level of bilirubin is about 0.5 mg per dl, and skin starts to become yellow at around 1.5 mg per dl, right? Now the common causes. So now common causes of bilirubin accumulation is jaundice. Now jaundice will have these three types, which are the the hemolytic jaundice, the obstructive jaundice, and a mid path between both of them, which is the hepatic jaundice. So we're just going to go over some of them. So here I've put in obstructive jaundice as like as a two part, because hepatic jaundice is kind of obstructive jaundice but not really. We're going to look at that a little bit later. But basically hemolytic jaundice is when the red blood cells are going to split due to whatever reason. Either there can be sickle cell anemia, there can be several reasons why the red blood cells are getting destroyed. Basically there is destruction of RBC, which releases hemoglobin in the blood, and the hemoglobin will split and it will cause the formation of bilirubin directly, right? Obstructive jaundice is basically when the jaundice is occurring not because of bilirubin formation in the blood, but it is forming because of the uh, how can I kind of explain this? Let's just say that the blood is coming into the liver and then it is going out of the liver. Okay, these are two different sectors. This part before the liver, this part is after the liver, right? So once the blood has kind of entered the liver, during that part, if there is any bilirubin release, that's hemolytic jaundice. In the liver, if some damage comes to the liver and it is not able to digest the hemoglobin correctly and causes formation of bilirubin, that is hepatic jaundice, right? Now, the rest of the parts are basically obstructive jaundice. So, out of the liver, there will be the bile ducts and the gallbladder. So, stones in either of them is going to block it, right? So, as a consequence of it getting blocked, the bile canaliculi will start forming, which will cause deposition of bilirubin, and this will extravasate, right? So now for obstructive jaundice, there can be various causes. There can be cholesterol stones that are forming. There can be kidney stone, bile stone, gallstones, whatever you can think of, you can put as obstructive jaundice, right? Now the type of bilirubin is important. Before the liver, bilirubin exists in an unconjugated manner because of the absence of the enzyme glucuronil. Uh, the glucuronil enzyme is absent, right? The the diglucuronide enzyme, basically the enzyme basically forms bilirubin to bilirubin diglucuronide. So that glucuronil enzyme is absent in the hemolytic phase. In the obstructive phase, I think the enzyme is called glucuronil transferase enzyme. So that is absent. In the obstructive jaundice, that since the blood is the hemoglobin passing through the liver, the bilirubin turns into bilirubin diglucuronide, which is the conjugated bilirubin, that is the soluble bilirubin. So this is a question that can be asked regarding the type of bilirubin that is present. Now, fate of hemoglobin, I'm just going to show you this chart that I have prepared right here. So here's like a pathway for extravascular hemolysis, which is hemolytic jaundice. So in the spleen, what will happen? There are these very tiny capillary-like structures known as sinusoids. They are even smaller than capillaries. So what will happen is that the blood cell tries to go through them, but it gets destroyed, right? So what it causes is extravascular hemolysis, which releases free hemoglobin, which releases heme, biliverdin, which is a non-digested form of bilirubin, right? Now, heme oxygenase is the enzyme which is quite important. Now, bilirubin will start going into the porphyrin cycle, Now, unconjugated bilirubin found in plasma albumin because bilirubin binds to albumin. Now it goes to the liver, glucuronidase transferase. This is the enzyme I was kind of messing up. I was actually confusing it with a conjugase enzyme that I'm actually studying in my second year. So yeah, that's why I think it's quite, kind of important to revise these because it's very easy to confuse. Uh, so liver, bilirubin monoglucuronide, we said that it's going to form diglucuronide eventually. And if this is blocked, right, it's going to go back into the blood, and this is forming conjugated bilirubin, right? Now if nothing happens, then it goes excreted and goes into the bile. Now this is a different pathway where blood and the intravascular hemolysis takes place. Intravascular hemolysis means blood inside the vessels is being hemolyzed. Hemolyzed means destruction, right? Destruction of RBC. Now free hemoglobin is released, haptoglobin goes out, methemoglobin is formed. Now it splits into globin and heme. Heme goes and binds to hemopexin heme and albumin heme and goes into the liver. Similar pathways. One end product is bilirubin and one end product is basically heme that is combining with a kind of a substrate, right? So once this is combined, it goes into the liver and basically it gets excreted. So this is kind of the idea behind jaundice. Now there are various different types of jaundice like neonatal jaundice, physiological jaundice, and even respiratory jaundice. There's a lot of different types. I'm not going into the pathology, but if you want, I can make a video on it. Please do tell me in the comment section. This is one of the videos that I'm filming after my channel has gone live. Thank you for all the subscribers. It's doing great. And I would love to see more people comment and more people kind of contact contact me about basic things or whatever you don't understand. Uh, Please feel free. Don't be scared or anything. I'm just a medical student. What can I do? Right? Uh, so yeah, and after this I have an induction to attend. So I will be making a video on some of the clubs that I'm in, um, just kind of to promote the clubs and kind of help the students kind of join the wave, if you will. So yeah, that's about it. Love the support, guys. Please keep the support going, and thank you so much.